You are listening to the Vaultcast, the official podcast of the B-Movie Film Vault, with your hosts, Jordan Guerin and Silent Steve Oldford.
Hey there, everybody, this is Jordan.
And this is Steve.
And you're listening to the first Halloween-oriented Vaultcast.
Yeah, and I want to say that this show is very important because like I said, I was hoping we'd make it this far. And it's our favorite holiday.
Yes.
It's
the best time of the year.
Well, I mean, when you're a kid, like, right in a row you have Halloween, Thanksgiving and Christmas every year.
Yeah.
And, like, when you're a kid, it's hard to, like, pick one that you like more than the other. I mean, one's got a ton of candy and a spooky vibe, and another one's got a ton of food and time off from school. and
one has
Christmas
a ton of
is just, Christmas is just ridiculously magical. But I would say that Halloween's the one that, like, transitions into adulthood very seamlessly.
It's the least tedious of the holidays. You can still enjoy it as much as a kid as you can as an adult.
Well, I think the fact that it's sort of cynical and dark in nature as a holiday helps it transition to adulthood nicely, as opposed to Christmas, where once you start paying bills and paying a mortgage and stuff, like Christmas loses a lot of its
Once
appeal.
It's not about you anymore, you're like, screw this. Screw Christmas.
Once you're the one hiding the presents, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I love Halloween. It's definitely my favorite time of the year.
Not only is it our favorite holiday, but it's like something that our show definitely should be geared toward.
Oh yeah,
it's our sweeps week.
Yeah,
you know, and it really is. And I think that we brainstormed a lot. I mean, what do you do? Do you do the Halloween movies? Do you do? We already did Friday the 13th because,
we cover that in detail.
But, like, what do you do that encapsulates the season of Halloween? And I think we both pretty much settled on Universal Monsters.
It's a perfect night for mystery and horror. The air itself is filled with monsters.
Universal's classic monsters.
I really think that those movies set the tone for the Halloween season, and it was like almost meta the way they worked their way into Halloween itself. I mean, you're never going to see a Halloween without Dracula or Frankenstein wandering around in the neighborhood. It's just like how it's a mainstay of it changed the whole season and what the season was about. I think it maybe even blew it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm still amazed at how popular they are.
Those characters.
Yeah,
they're
almost timeless.
They are timeless. Well, let's not jump ahead too much. I mean, like, what's our reasoning behind picking Universal Monsters? What do you think? Why did we settle on that? Because it was knee-jerk. I think it was very knee-jerk for both of us. But then we're like...
Because they're the ones that started it all.
Yeah?
They all came out in a time when talkies were still kind of a new thing. So all those movies were quite a big deal.
Cinema was just learning to walk.
Yeah.
And then these great things came along. And they managed to be hugely popular at a time when most Americans were destitute. Dracula took off, Frankenstein took off in the middle of the Depression. And they were huge successes. To try and explain the appeal is almost impossible to do. They're just great movies and great characters, and it's just lightning in a bottle. And the fact that Universal, just one studio, just kept knocking it out of the park with all these interesting monsters. And before we started recording, I said to you, it's sort of similar to what Marvel's doing now, where you're just introducing these standalone characters, and people keep coming back to watch what you're doing with these standalone characters. Except the difference is Marvel actually has a set business plan to do all these things.
This was all accidental, in a way.
Universal just, like, naturally, like, without realizing, was doing the right thing and creating a huge franchise that went beyond even what they could control.
They were ahead of their time, too. I mean, they created these films, which were all iconic, and then they generated sequels for each one. Even if the main even if the main monster died, they found a way to bring them back for another round.
They did, and they didn't know what they were doing. They knew it was successful, and they kept bringing them back. But you also have to recognize that, I mean, this was like a maybe 30-year span of great monsters that they brought out. It wasn't just Dracula and Frankenstein sequels. I mean, they had I mean, I think it was Hunchback that maybe came
Hunchback
out.
was like one. I think that was the first one.
Was it the first one, or was it?
I think it was
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera came a little later.
Okay, so it's Hunchback.
And it's been done over and over again. So.
Yeah, and then Invisible Man, and then that might have come out.
That was a little later.
But I mean, boom, 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 boom,
yeah.
and
one after another.
They kept bringing them out, and then they continued to bring them out. 50s and 60s, you had stuff like Creature of the Black Lagoon coming in, and it's just this great,
Yeah.
How did they do it? Like, it's who was the mastermind behind all this? I mean, it's hard to explain. It's not like they had some guy renting office space that was like, well, we're going to release all these monster movies for the next 30 years. It's just there was something where people wanted to do these, and they all have their different flavor. I mean, Frankenstein is interesting. Have you seen Gods and Monsters with Ian McKellen?
No, I haven't.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
The director of Frankenstein, James Whale, was homosexual, and worked like you could watch Frankenstein and never know that was how he worked in his feelings for being sort of
an outcast,
monster, because of his lifestyle.
Yeah,
the loneliness of the monster. From his own personal loneliness.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and it makes you can go back and reread the movie that way. But it also stands on its own. I think that's the hallmark of a good filmmaker, is that you can work in what you want without it being obvious that this is what it's about. Yeah. They started mining these old stories, because Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, they are all books first. But they made it like what it needed to be. Like, it felt like that's what it was supposed to be.
You know why I think they work so well?
Why?
Because they play off people's xenophobic fears.
What is that?
Fear of foreigners.
Okay.
Dracula.
Keep going with that.
Well, Dracula was from Transylvania.
Yeah.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
And, where the hell was Bavaria was Frankenstein, and...
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! In the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
Most of these took place in a foreign country, and there's always an outsider that comes into town and, makes things weird. I think it's kind of a sign of the times, because we were just about to be pulled into World War II.
That's true, and America did not want to be involved with
we didn't want to be involved. We wanted to stay out.
Scale after World War I.
Yeah, the war to end all wars.
I could see that. I don't think it's... it's hard to say stuff like that, because you're talking about an unconscious reason that people are watching something.
Well, that's true.
What is the unconscious reason that we keep going back to superhero movies then right now? Does everyone feel powerless right now?
Probably. Actually, that's probably correct.
What the world needs now is a shining hero.
Oh, yes, we do.
What the world needs now is a glory man.
Well, we're in a world that lacks heroes, and we need fictional ones to fill that gap at this current time.
Well, but that certainly wasn't a time period that lacked monsters, so you can't...
I don't know. Let's go back in time and we'll ask somebody.
But that's what I'm saying, is when you get into the zeitgeist of why, some kind of thing becomes popular, whether it's right now young adult fiction, or when vampires were the thing, a few years ago. It's hard to explain what really brought it on.
Yeah.
Because it could be such a number of factors. I think the biggest one, it's like the Harry Potter thing. I had to sit down, when Harry Potter came out, I went and I watched it with my wife, and I turned to her and I said, you know what, this, in a way, sort of pisses me off, because these are the kind of books that I read when I was in high school, and everyone would laugh at me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now it's popular now, and it's not any different.
Yep. Welcome to my world.
It's just, it's like, everyone else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too, I think. It's like a hive mentality of enough people have liked it so that it takes off. I think there's a point where you get enough likes and your post is going to run to the top of the page. And it's like that. It's like that with something that, even if it's a movie or a piece of art or a book, that people will be totally attracted to it. This is the show that needed to happen on Halloween, but how do you sum up a 25-year span, 30-year span of awesome movies. I mean, we can't rank them because tonally they don't all. I mean, you have Abbott and Costello coming into this at some point.
That's what's interesting about this is they created the original films, then they made sequels to some, but if the character is dead, they typically found a way to bring them back. But then they started doing the crossover movies, like you said, they work things like Marvel does now. But they also brought in the comedy element as well, which was unheard of at the time, I think.
Everything was unheard of at the time. I mean...
But these are trendsetters. These are the ones that lay the foundation.
They did lay the foundation. They did create the template of what you expect out of a monster movie. And not only did they find it immediately, but then they were able to reproduce it and do it in such a way that was just different enough that they could bring about something that was new, like Creature of the Black Lagoon.
They dared to bring him back alive from his haunts deep in the jungles of the Amazon. They dared to put him on display with the other denizens of the deep, while thousands came to marvel and wonder. They dared to study him, to probe him, to tempt him with the lure of a woman's beauty, thinking that mere chains could hold in check the primeval forces that surged and roiled within this strange being from the dawn of time.
And you didn't roll your eyes and say, oh, here they go again.
Yeah.
It felt different enough that you liked it.
Mm-hmm. I've actually been fortunate enough to see a couple of these in 35mm, too.
Yeah.
I saw Creature in 3D, actually, a couple of years ago. It was really cool, yeah.
I saw Invisible Man, and...
I missed that. I was there, and I wanted to watch it, and I got talking to other people, and before I knew it, you were back in the lobby saying, hey, it was really cool.
It is cool. Those old... it's so weird. Those old 35mm prints of the black and white movies are just... There's something about them that's just so great.
Yeah.
And captivating. Even though, there's scenes that I would say if you shot them now the same way would be incredibly boring.
Yeah.
But there's something captivating about them being from that time, looking the way they do, the way they're shot. They have a charm to them that you just enjoy watching. So anybody listening, if you do get a chance to see a 35mm print of any of the Universal classic monster movies, any of them, go see it.
Do it.
Do it. Don't hold back. It transports you to...
Oh, it's like a time capsule.
Yeah, it transports you... I mean, you could easily just be sitting there in 1931. You know what I mean? It's the same experience. So...
Alright, so what are your favorite Universal monster movies? Like, if you had to pick... Let's say you had to pick three favorites, like your three go-tos.
Well, it's weird. I like Frankenstein the movie better than Dracula, but I don't like Frankenstein the monster better than Dracula. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense.
I think the way Frankenstein movie is...
Well, Frankenstein doesn't
paced
have...
and shot, and the arc of the film is more interesting. But Dracula, Lugosi is just so amazing in that role. That is the epitome of an actor owning a role. Because every Dracula that's come after that was either a reaction to what he did or tried to ape what he did.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, he owned it. Completely owned the role.
Yeah, most of them try to do that accent.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
Yeah. Or if they don't, they're so obviously avoiding trying to do what he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, his presence will always be there with that role.
I haven't seen it, but I think it's the 1979 Dracula that has Frank Langella. Have you ever seen that? What does he do in that movie? I have yet to see it. Does he try to ape Lugosi, or does he or does he just do his own thing?
It's a mix. Langella is weird. He has emotional range, but he's always Frank Langella. So, and everything I've seen him in. But he does have emotional range that he can put into every role, but it never seems like anything but Frank Langella. So, it only becomes unique because it's his take on it.
Yeah.
But it certainly is, I mean, even down to the makeup, it's Lugosi. I mean...
And that hasn't really changed, I mean...
No, even a great actor like Christopher Lee couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
The instrument of my final conquest. Swifter, more awesome than the Black Death. The Plague.
I like his Dracula.
Yeah.
But it's still a version of Lugosi. The makeup, the clothes.